John Key was probably the best major National Party Prime Minister. He was the only one to not have at least one massive stain on his record. Be it due to recklessness or just sheer amorality, most of the others have very large stains. And I say major National Party Prime Ministers to avoid comparison with people like Jack Marshall and Bill English. People who probably would have had a big stain on their records, but never got a proper opportunity. Still, John Key was really not that great. People say the economy was good under him, but it was a pretty good decade for the economy. The 2010s was a relatively easy decade to run an economy. And Michael Cullen's rainy day fund helped soften the Great Recession substantially. The Great Recession also happened early enough into his tenure that it didn't pose too much of a threat to his credibility. The GFC began under Helen Clark. John Key spent a lot of time in government and didn't actually have all that much to show for it. Sure, he had to deal with the Christchurch earthquakes and the Kaikoura earthquake, but that was basically it. Compare that to Jacinda Ardern. She spent less time in office and dealt with the Christchurch mosque shooting, the White Island eruption, and of course COVID. Key got a relatively easy run. He is viewed favourably because he looks good compared to the utter clown show that is the National Party leadership list. Sidney Holland, who did an authoritarian crackdown on striking workers. Keith Holyoake, who sent our soldiers to die in the immoral imperialist excursion that was the Vietnam War. Robert Muldoon, who had noble intentions but pursued them so recklessly that he totally destroyed the economy. Jim Bolger, who gutted the welfare state and eliminated workers' rights. And Luxon, the weakest leader imaginable. Compared to this lot, of course John Key looks like a saint. Of course, the fact that he was in coalition with the Maori Party during its more reasonable days likely helped to soften the harsh excesses of right-wing politics. John Key cut taxes for top-income earners and made workers pay for it with increases in the GST. This made the tax system even more unfair. His government opposed a free school lunches program for poor schools. His government cut student allowances, making it harder for lower-class students to study. He brought us closer to the USA, risking our security and independence in doing so. But perhaps the most stupid thing happened long after he left office. His recent public endorsement of Donald Trump. His claim that Trump would do good things for the economy. This is what he said before the 2024 US election. That does not look so good now. Trump has caused major economic issues with his totally unpredictable applications of tariffs. Not to mention his record borrowing in a desperate attempt at funding tax cuts for the wealthy. And I think endorsing Trump is morally questionable, to put it lightly. This is an associate of Jeffrey Epstein who has been desperately trying to cover up a pedophile network. This is someone who called a Republican state official and demanded that they rig the 2020 election for him. This is someone who sent his goons to violently overturn an election result and then pardoned them for it. This is someone who lies constantly, including the especially devastating lie about the 2020 election. A lie that has totally destabilized American democracy. You would have to be stupid or morally compromised to endorse such a person. I think Luxon and Bolger are generally worse than John Key, but I don't think either of them would endorse Donald Trump. John Key might be good by National Party standards, but he was a bad Prime Minister and a very bad political analyst. He was little more than a generic centre-right Prime Minister, gradually chipping away at workers' rights and giving the rich more wealth and power. And if he was in coalition with the Modern Act Party, he could have easily been far worse. He was better than the current government, and he was certainly a stronger leader than Luxon. He refused to work with Winston Peters, for example. But he was not a good prime minister in any serious sense.